Everyone. I advise that the Council will be recording this meeting today to be webcast and available on the internet. As such, all those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Can I ask all councillors during the duration of the meeting to limit discussions only to the business on the agenda and what is permissible under the adopted Code of Meeting Practice? I'd like to call upon the Vicar to come and make a prayer, please. Could everyone stand up? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for sending your Son into this broken world to live, die and rise to establish your kingdom of peace. Thank you for this Council, for the Mayor, the office holders and staff. Thank you for their skills, abilities and willingness to work for the good of our town. Please give them wisdom, discernment, humility, transparency and perseverance as they make decisions for the good of all stakeholders. At this time in particular, we pray for safety for those fighting fires, for those affected by the fires. Please bring an end to this immense fire. Please protect residents. Please protect those bravely fighting the fires. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge country. Our council acknowledges that we meet today on the traditional lands of the Gamilaroi, Gomeroi people and recognise their continuing connection to this land. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal people present here today. Recognition of servicemen and women. Council acknowledges the sacrifice made by Australian servicemen and women, in particular those who gave their lives in the defence of the freedom we enjoy today. Thank you, councillors. You may be seated. Attendance by audio-visual link. We've had no applications for people to attend by audio-visual link. Move on to apologies and granting of leave of absences. Do I have any apologies or leave of absences? Councillor Bohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an apology from Councillor Browning, who is on personal leave today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that's an apology. That's noted. Thank you very much. Any other apologies or? Okay, so an apology for John. He's coming. Okay, no worries. Do I have a mover on apologies? Someone to move that? Councillor Redding, Councillor Dickinson. Thank you very much. All those in favour? All those against? That's moved. Thank you very much. We've got declaration of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Do we have any items that need to be declared?
Yeah, same as last month's DA 2024-0044. My employer is funding that community project, DA.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richardson, any other?
Not significant, non-pecuniary, and I will go out of the chamber when it comes time.
Thank you very much for that. Good one. Thank you. Items to be considered in confidential public excluded meeting. We do have an item, and that will be, we'll go through that item at the end of the public part of this meeting, and we'll go through the rationale there. We don't have any presentations today. I'd like to go through the minutes. Any comments on the minutes, or any questions or any concerns by the council? No. Do I have a mover of the motion that we accept that? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Richardson, a seconder. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? That's moved. Thank you. Okay, we've got questions. We've got nil questions with notice. We do have a mayoral minute. I do have an additional item in the mayoral minute, which should be all sitting on your desks, everyone. Councillor Clements has entered the chamber at 1:06. Thank you. So I think I might go through this special item first, just in terms of the bushfires. I've had a number of our councillors actually approached me about the council formally thanking the hard work of the ongoing fire effort. I've been at the LEMC meetings every day since the fires really been an issue about the last 10 days. It's been amazing seeing all the different services work together, seeing the council staff work together, seeing so many volunteers on the ground really contributing to what's been a sterling effort. It's a truly terrible fire, and it's certainly something that we as a council should be so grateful with the amount of not just professionals but also the amazing volunteers that we have in this community who have just really stepped up during this emergency. There have been literally we've had firefighters from all around this region all coming to Narrabri Shire to help us as a community and really help protect property, protect assets, protect infrastructure, and that fire has really, obviously dramatically increased overnight. And I would just really like us to, just unite as a council, and I'd like to move that motion, just a motion of gratitude to not just the volunteers but to all the emergency services and all those people involved. I'd also like to extend, just a big thank you to the fire crews. It's dangerous work. I was out in a fire truck yesterday and we were driving down one particular road and we came back 3 minutes later and there's a massive tree had just fallen over that exact same part of the road that we were driving down. And this is happening over and over and over again all across the Pilliga. And it's really dangerous work, and they many of them are doing it completely voluntarily. We've got plenty of professional firefighters in there as well, and it's just been really tough. So it's hot, it's gruelling. Many of them aren't getting much sleep, and they are fatigued and exhausted. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a shire to really to show that support. I also wanted to show some special recognition to the great work of Eloise. Many of you may not know that Eloise, as part of her statutory duty, actually chairs the local emergency management. The Chief Inspector Dunn and a number of other people from the RFS, and they basically coordinate this LEMC. That committee's been meeting every day just to literally get updates on maps and update issues and prognoses around what's been happening with that emergency. And it's been amazing just watching these professionals at play. I mean, they really are good at their job, and it's great to see. I'd also like to just really commend and thank the Narrabri Shire staff who have been across the board, have been supporting the emergency services from jobs like maintaining our fire trucks to providing comm support to providing logistical support. I mean, seriously, we've had some staff members that haven't slept for 24 hours that are still at that fire control centre. So it's it's a really tough job, but it's got to be done because houses and lives are potentially at stake, and it's just so important that our shire is really on board with that. There is talk about it. The fire is escalating in its impact at the moment. It looks like it's going to be very much upgraded to a regional emergency, and it's affecting the Warrumbungle Shire and also Gunnedah Shire. So that as a shire, we really reach out and obviously offer whatever support we can to our neighbouring shires, and just hope that everyone stays safe. I really hope and pray that, you know, the weather really comes to our rescue over the next 24, 48 hours with rain, but with that, the change in weather, you really do get some real very unpredictable fire situation. It almost exploded at Pilliga last night. There was some pyrocumulus fire, you know, 3 a.m. in the morning, and it was just truly, it's like a scene out of hell. So it's with that that I'd like to move this this motion of thanks to all of the volunteers, all of the staff, all of the emergency services, and everyone else, and some of the charities that have come on board that have come on board and provided meals and provided support and provided places of shelter. It's just been great to see this community come together. I'd like to just hand over to the GM for a moment.
Through the Chair, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to pass a comment with regards to the resolution. Council Narrabri Shire staff have been very conscious of rostering the staff throughout this emergency process, and I'd just like to point out that we shouldn't have any staff that have been working for 24 hours without any rest, because we've been very cautious and we've been very well planned in terms of rostering. So I would beg your sort of attention to that line within that clause, just to understand that we haven't had that situation with our staff, but we have had those staff that have worked very, very hard within their rosters that have been scheduled. So if you would sort of be of the mind to acknowledge that, I would appreciate that change to be made.
Sounds good. All right, I'd like to move this. Any comments or discussion for or against this motion? Councillor Richardson.
Just a quick comment. I think it's perfect. We need to do that, especially because we don't meet again until February. I also want to acknowledge the evacuation centres. Gunnedah has set one up at the PCYC. Warren Bungles is about to set one up as well, and I think that's a really good collaborative effort from our neighbouring councils to help us, and hopefully we don't have to return the favour because hopefully the rain will come, but we can offer that support as well when they're impacted.
On the topic of the 24 hours, that staff, that person that I'm talking about is actually someone who's a volunteer with one of the emergency services, and she's also on staff. So it's I know that she hasn't had a lot of rest. So our appreciation. Any other comments or concerns for or against this motion? I put it to the council. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. I'd like to move on to the rest of the mayoral minute. It was really just about appointments. A lot of it was, country mayors. We had some LG New South Wales events that I was involved in, a few media appointments. And I just really appreciate those councillors that have been able to assist with some of the school presentations and various things. I know that they're a wonderful occasion, but I know how busy everyone is. So I really appreciate that, it's been a busy December, and I'm sure all of us are looking forward to a little bit of a break over Christmas and New Year's. Any comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll move it. I'll just I'll move that that mayoral minute is that the council notes the mayoral appointments of that period up to the 10th of December. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Council. Okay. First item what we have is item 13.1, which is the delegate report, the minutes of the Narrabri Mine Community CCC held on the 7th of December 2023. You'd like to move that? Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder on that at all? Seconder on that? Councillor Campbell, thank you very much. Councillor Reading, would you like to speak to that motion?
Look, I really don't think so. Everything is listed there in the minutes, and they're very comprehensive minutes. So, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Redding. Any other comments for or against? Any other arguments? Okay, I put to the meeting. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. We move on to 13.2, which is the resolution register that council notes and notes the outstanding resolution register as at 14th of December and also the completed resolution register at the same date. Do I have a mover on that motion? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Dickinson, thank you. Any comments for or against this this resolution? No. Councillor Richardson.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering if we could get an update on number 3, the Boggabri Doctor Housing. Have we had any chats to different entities or grant funding? The last update was we were financially shortfalled for the costing.
Yes, through the GM to the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we have had updates. We are in continual discussion with funding bodies in relation to the proposal. And yes, we do acknowledge that there is a funding shortfall, particularly in relation to cost increases. I know in the last month the property services team have finally been able to achieve a hold of costing. Can't think of the terminology at this point in time for a contract, so a set price contract that won't float. I know that the housing contracts in the last 2 years since COVID, they've been really reticent to do any fixed price costing, but they finally started to do that. So we've at least bedded down a cost, so we're understanding of what the shortfall is. But as for that, we now got to approach funding bodies as to how we're going to do that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. I look forward to further discussions.
Councillor Clements.
Yes, just a couple of questions. The Mary's Mount quarry.
Sorry? Yep.
Mary's Mount quarry.
Yes.
Just wondering where that's up. It's gone to an external consultant or some such thing.
Sorry, Jim. We just had a question on the Mary's Mount quarry.
I will have to take that on. Sorry, I'll have to take that on notice. I'm afraid I don't have an answer for Mary's Mount quarry at this point in time.
Curious where it's up to. And also Australia Day activities. Do we know who we have yet as ambassadors and that sort of thing?
Through the General Manager, no announcements as yet, Councillor.
I don't know if you said it.
All right. Do we have any other questions or concerns for or against that motion? I put it to the meeting. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now our investment report, which is item 13.3. The council note the investment report for November 2023. Do I have a mover on that motion? Anyone? Councillor Redding, Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. My question relates to the actual quantum of interest received, where that what the actual amount is additional at this point of the calendar. If the director could give us some assistance, what is the quantum of interest received over, unless it's already there, I haven't seen it, over the original budget?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, councillor, through the mayor to the, through the general manager to the mayor. That appears to be not on that report as such to be able to say what the quantum is compared to the budget. But looking at the graph, it appears we're about $1.2 million, and the budget year to date is around the 900 mark. So I'd say about 300,000 over the budget at this point in time.
You'll take that on notice and perhaps send that around to the councillors after this meeting?
Yes, most definitely we can, and
Thank you.
we could probably also add that to the report, so that way it's something that you can view every month going forward.
Thank you, Mayor. That was really the intention of the question and to begin with. Really,
Thank you very much.
If we could have that as an actual quantum rather than, and in the graph's great, like the graph, but.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments, concerns? I put it to the meeting. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. (13.4) Monthly financial report, November 23, that the council notes the monthly financial report for the month. Do I have a mover, seconder? Councillor Bowen moves it. Seconder? Councillor Dickinson, thank you very much. Would you like to speak to your motion at all?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few questions, if I may, regarding these accounts, more so than making any direct contribution to it. Page 80, Mayor, there's the issue of the asset register. And I note there that the assets, the general infrastructure property and plant and equipment is $605 million. And my question is to the director, through you, through the GM, I'm sorry, that $605 million, I'm just wondering whether that is that the line item that would be subject to impairment when it comes time to reevaluate, as you've indicated in a few parts of this report, that there will be impairments coming, and if you have some thoughts about, or would be able to give some guidance about what that impairment is likely to be once we have our completed set of accounts, going back for the years where the Auditor General suggested that we need to make those adjustments.
Thank you, councillor.
Again, through the general manager and the mayor, thank you, councillor. Just in relation to the impairment, we do a yearly assessment of impairment. That doesn't mean that there is actually any impairment at all. So that's assessed not from an accounting point of view, that's assessed initially from the infrastructure delivery point of view. And then we do an accounting assessment on that impairment assessment from the infrastructure delivery team. At this stage, there's no quantum that has been assessed as being impaired, but we are still working through that. And that will come to light at the conclusion of the 22-23 financial statements. But of the $605 million, not all of it would be impairable, I wouldn't assume, just based on knowledge of impairment generally, roads, property, plant and equipment. Some of it won't be impaired. But yeah, at this stage we've got no indication as to what the value would be.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments, questions, concerns? I put it to the,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lamont.
A belated couple of questions.
Right.
Reading the, we're dealing with item 13.4, are we?
We are.
Okay, that's the
Financial
monthly
report.
financial report, which is pretty lame, but we know that as a council, and that's why it says in there that we're trying to work on it. What would worry me, if I was the GM or the CFO, is the fact that what Councillor Bowen is talking about is we're only dealing with the going forward. We don't know what went on in the past, as the auditor had pointed out, and that would be a major concern. But my question is this, that as you've got a new manager of financial services, yes or no?
You need to direct the question to me.
Yeah.
I'll just.
I did, but you didn't. You looked at me blandly, so I went straight to the answerer.
I'll just ask I'll ask the director to answer that.
What am I supposed to do?
Yes, the GM, through the Mayor. Yes, Councillor, we have a Manager of Financial Services who's been newly appointed.
Okay, thank you. And his role previously was budget coordinator, was that right?
To the director.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, through you to the Mayor.
Again, through the GM to the Mayor. Yes, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. And it says down the bottom of page 77 there that the employee benefits and on-costs are slightly below adopted budget expectations. However, there's anticipation this will reverse with current recruitment measures. I see in the weekly council page once a week in the Courier that there's several jobs advertised from time to time. What is our situation, Mr Mayor? Do you know, through you to the GM? How many outstanding staff have we got, and what sort of an impact is that going to have on us financially? Because there's always a buffer when you don't have staff, but you're bringing in, and I know it's been a trend of this council, bringing in consultants and other contractors to fill the gap, which are much dearer than employees. So is that something that will be in the financial report going forward, please?
To the General Manager.
Through the chair, thank you very much. We are approximately, because if I'd been given some notice of this question, I would have been able to give you some very accurate figures. But as I reported, I believe at a councillor workshop a couple of meetings ago, we are about 15 staff better off this year than we were last year in terms of numbers of people on deck. We have reduced our turnover rate over the last 12 to 14 months from approximately 30% down to around 15%. So we're retaining more staff and we have more staff on our books. We also have a number of projects that are underway from an operational perspective that would be above and beyond our operational plan, such as servicing the financial audit rectification work. We are not using entirely our own staff for that process. We are using external staff to assist because I don't want that process, which will be discussed in the next item, to impact on our business as usual. So whilst our staff costs may be marginally higher than they would possibly be on budget as a result of two elements. One is that we are successfully appointing people around now, where we weren't successfully appointing anybody over the previous 12 months because we either didn't get applicants or we just didn't have the right calibre of people. There is pressure on our budget from that perspective, but I would rather have good people on board getting the jobs done and work with council to make sure that we can reduce our budgets moving forward through quarter 3 and 4. So that's the intention. We're trying to manage these things as we go into the new year, but we're actually focused on really making sure that we get work done that needs to be done. So I do not want lack of resource to be used as an excuse of lack of delivery for important issues that need to be delivered.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. Councillor Clements.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councillor Lamont's question, which, a high staff turnover is damaging to capacity to deliver, but it's also can be very damaging to your finances. So with 15% currently, 30%, what view is 30%, please?
To the General Manager.
Through the chair, I would estimate, again, I've not got the accurate figures because I wasn't pre-warned about the question in the chamber, but I estimate that when I arrived here, turnover rates were of the order of high 20s to early 30s%.
If we could, for a future meeting, get a track of that for the term of this council, please, I'd be interested in looking at that. That's a question.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate the way in our standard meeting procedure, questions to staff and directors and the General Manager, it is obviously best that a little bit of notice is given, and we've had a number of questions that have just been kind of handed up today, and of course that's a matter for consideration to the General Manager. Sorry, sit down. Sorry, Councillor.
Through the chair, I acknowledge.
No, you will sit down. Sorry.
So you've taken the call from me?
I I asked you to sit down,
So
councillor.
you've taken the call.
Sorry?
I've asked
No,
you a question. Have you taken the call?
I'm the chair. You sit down, councillor.
So you've taken the call.
I'm taking the call.
Yeah, I have the call. You've taken the call from me.
No, I'm the chair of the meeting, and when I speak, no one else does.
Not what I'm asking.
Sit down, councillor. I'll just get the general manager to speak, and then you can speak.
Through the chair, again, I'll need to consider the request with regards to a regular update in terms of staffing numbers. I believe that probably the appropriate dynamic for that would be through our ARIC committee, and this council receives the minutes from the ARIC committee, and thereby providing the required operational data. I don't believe I would like our staff to be reporting formally on staff numbers through an ordinary council meeting. I don't personally believe that's the right type of information for this forum.
Councillor Clements.
So if I could, if I could comment on your comments, Chair, this is not a gotcha moment. These are discussions on what's in front of us, and I don't expect that everything will be answered on the day. That's unreasonable. And I don't think that we have to give notice. We're discussing what's in front of us. And for a future meeting, I'm interested in that. And from my perspective, I think it's absolutely, this is a board of governance here, a board of governance and protocol. That's our role. And I think staff turnover has been an issue in the past. I think it's absolutely something that needs to be reported to this meeting. Not interested in the specifics of who, but the numbers are a concern. So I think we'll raise this at a future meeting. And just to say again, quite simply, these are for discussion. These are not gotcha moments, and we've raised this, and I expect to hear about it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Clements. Any other comments for or against this motion? I put the motion. Oh, councillor Lamont. Another.
So, I take on board the conversation before me. It was supplementary. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the General Manager again, how do we house these employees we're trying to attract? Have we got a program or something there, or are they competing with mining and contractors and other contractors in the area, or have we got an arrangement somewhere whereby they can reside while they make their mind up?
Thank you, councillor Lamont. To the General Manager.
Through the chair, the issues that we face are no different to any large employer or even any small employer within our shire. They are exactly the same in every other shire, I would suggest, in Australia and the Southern Hemisphere, is that there is a housing shortage. There is no secret in that. So wherever we are able to assist staff to move here and work, then we endeavour to do that. I don't think I really want to go into any further detail about that because I believe that impinges on staff privacy, but I think I've probably answered your question there. We do endeavour to assist people wherever we can.
Thank you very much. I put this motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Now we've got item 13.5, which is the Financial Statements Rectification Plan. The recommendation here is that Council notes the progress of the Financial Statements Rectification Plan. Now, before this becomes a motion, I'd like to call upon the General Manager and potentially the Director Harrington to speak to this item, please.
Thank you, Chair, through the GM to the Chair. The Financial Statements Rectification Plan, as Council would be aware, staff and management have committed to quarterly updates in relation to the issues and items found from the 21-22 annual financial audit, laid out in the report, in the executive summary, and the background is everything there that Council needs to be aware of. The Financial Statements Rectification Plan, current course of action and current situation, everything seems to be on track. We're having weekly meetings with their team and the associated staff that have been charged with the responsibility of making sure that Council gets better than what they have done in the past in relation to financial statement management, recognition, and all the issues that went before us in 21-22. I commend the report to Council. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them where required.
You can ask a question. You can. Anyway, we'll move this to be a motion. I just before we do that, are there any other questions from councillors of the director? You can ask questions of people before there's a motion. Every other council does it. Sorry. Well, you can move the motion. Would you like to move this motion?
I would.
And do I have a seconder of this motion? Councillor Campbell. Would you like to speak to this motion?
I would. Look, and I think it's a good point to invite discussion once we have a motion in front of us and actually ask questions of the motion, which is why I've moved it. Yeah, look, I'm very interested in terms of the impairments here and the previous item before council, just how we're dealing with the impairments in our budget and where they're going to show up, Mr Chair. And if we can get a proper quantification of the impairments, I see 2.7 million, 874,000. If we get a summation of how they've been dealt with, these are impairments that have been brought forward from previous decisions. How are they being dealt with in our current budget, please?
Thank you. Through the General Manager to the Director.
The General Manager to the Mayor, thank you, Councillor. So there's an impairment assessment being conducted by the infrastructure delivery team. We have quite a number of, so the impairment adjustment that was brought to account relates most ostensibly to flood damage assets. And so DCPM, who are our project managers on this flood damage journey, and councillors will recall workshops that have occurred previously, where information in relation to flood damage was discussed. They have conducted a rigorous assessment of the flood damage that was before us, courtesy of the flood damage occurring in 21 and 22. That assessment was purely for grants from a flood damage from a DFRA perspective, and didn't hold water from a financial statement disclosure requirement under the accounting standards. So we've gone back and we've said to these project managers, what information do you have so that we can make an impairment assessment and we can do a proper accounting assessment and disclose correctly in our financial statements the details of what has happened with their flood damage. They have in excess of 130,000 images which they've prepared, and we have a rigorous assessment being done by the project managers, who will then take that information and it's given an impairment or a condition rating based on the IPWEA condition rating for roads. That will then be transferred over as part of our project plan to a third-party valuer who has experience in being able to come up with dollar values and, in accordance with accounting standards, be able to give us an impairment assessment or an assessment of damage. Now, impairment and an assessment of damage can be completely different. So I'm not sure whether we want to get into the accounting standards definition of impairment and how it all works. I'd probably prefer not to at this point in time. But the information that's going to come from the valuers as part of the rectification plan, the information that's coming from the valuers will then be used by our accounting team to prepare the IPPE, the Infrastructure, Property, Plant and Equipment portion of the financial statements for 22-23. And as part of that, there will be an assessment of impairment, and there'll be either an application of that assessment, or where it's deemed not to be impaired, then it'll be recognised appropriately as well.
Further, Chair, particularly the 2.7 million, I've just got a question that relates to capital or income in nature. And again, I'll ask the question again: when will it be introduced into our books? These changes, 2.7 million, as I understand, is capital or income in nature, is the question. We can go back and look at the works and understand whether they were an income or whether they were a capital expenditure. I think, if I can get confirmation of that, I think that's the issue at heart. And when will that be formally introduced into our statements? once that impairment is, I'll use the word, you've used it here, once that impairment is decided, realised, how will it be introduced into our budget? Thank you.
Through the General Manager to the Director.
The impairment, once assessed, thank you, sorry, through the GM to the Mayor. Councillor, thank you for your question. The $2.7 million, once impairment has been assessed, it will be dealt with appropriately under the accounting standards. I can't make a determination as to whether the 2.7 is all capital, part capital or no capital at this point in time. But it will be, once it is assessed, it will be disclosed appropriately within the financial statements. Currently, the prior period error is in the 2021 year, and so it will remain in the 2021 year. In relation to the budget, it has no impact on the current year budget other than by virtue of an accounting entry as to whether there is an amount in reserves and how it's attributed. So, in terms of our budget moving forward, it'll impact where we sit in terms of our reserves and where that line item is, if it's so indeed assessed as either capital or income or other.
Councillor Lamont.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I know, Councillor, you were first, weren't you? You're right. Look, my bone of contention always has been, why aren't we going back to 18, 17, when the Auditor General said we've got a lot of problems here, and the staff here of this council are going to say these two wise, sensible gentlemen, but there's more than you. There's a whole council staff that are dealing with the costs that were in the financial statements that the auditor couldn't agree on. Well, there wasn't insufficient information to form an opinion, and alluded to the fact in their engagement closing letter that the previous years were a bit of a mess too. And in the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, all that information, and councillors have all that information, have indicated there's a lot of systemic and accounting issues that need to be rectified to go forward. Now, my biggest concern in all of this is the ratepayers and the residents of this community know nothing about what's going on. We started to try and agree on a media statement or something to go out there to tell them the truth. Our values are all about transparency and being good leaders in our community. And I know the staff are deliberating with trying to meet future targets to get the back in the good books, I guess. It's not personally, but as far as this council is concerned with the Office of Local Government and the Auditor General. And so what are we doing, Mr Mayor, about an accurate statement going out to the community saying here's where we are and this is what's gone on in the past and this is what we're doing to rectify it, because the community need to have confidence in us as councillors. And finally, the Auditor General themselves said on every audit report we're responsible for the capacity of the council to carry on economically, we're responsible for the efficiency and the effectiveness, and the questions being asked by my colleagues are legitimate, fair questions that should be answered and not pushed away. For those very reasons alone, the only time we get an opportunity, because we don't want to delve into the operational, is when the financial reports come up or when the budget reports come up to ask questions. That is our role. So to shoot us down on questions like that is not very good governance, I don't think. So that's my first question. And the other question is, has the management letter been received yet that was alluded to? In the letter from the Office of Local Government, Brett Whitworth was writing to us. Can someone give us a rundown as where it is up to? Because he was saying we're having meetings with the council management on our ability to carry on financially. That's what it said in the letter. That's how serious this is, Mr Mayor. And we cannot push this aside. We can't say, oh, you know, we just tuck it under here, accounting standards and all that. It's more than that. This is a very serious situation. Very few councils in New South Wales have Auditor General, in particular, do not give an opinion on because they couldn't find enough details. That's embarrassing to our council out there in the state.
Thank you, Councillor Lamont.
Through the chair, I'd just like to make a few comments that the suggestion of a lack of transparency, I would like to seriously push back on that allegation, because at every opportunity our staff have presented information to this council. The council has known right through this process where we're at, and I can recall a number of emails, and I can recall reports that have indicated where we're at. So this staff will always remain committed to answering questions, and I don't believe there's been a question here today that hasn't been answered with regards to the finances. And we will continue to answer questions in an open forum. Obviously, if we're pre-warned of questions, we can provide better answers. We always committed to reporting at 3 monthly intervals, and that report, the list of items that are contained in that report is pretty much a list of items that would be viewed in any management letter. The answer with regards to the question, have we received a management letter? Yes, we have. We received one 4 weeks ago, approximately, and we have been endeavouring to discuss those matters with the Office of the Local Government, Brett. We haven't, due to issues on both sides, managed to organise that meeting yet, but we still endeavour to have those conversations with the Office of Local Government. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much.
What I would like to say, sorry, I'll add one more thing, is that we did have our ERIC committee yesterday, and obviously there was far more information shared with our ERIC committee, as one would expect, around this table. The minutes will be coming to this table at some point in the future, probably the first meeting next year. The ERIC committee were very complimentary of the financial audit rectification plan. They endorsed the plan, and assuming that we are able to stick to the timeframes that are described in that plan, everyone's belief, our auditors as well, are believing that we will make significant progress forward to solving these problems.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Redding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the General Manager indicated, there was an ARIC meeting yesterday, which I did attend. The committee were very supportive, and not only supportive, but they considered the rectification plan, the financial statement rectification plan, and also the corporate risk register to be the framework to be very robust from what council has presented to them. And as the General Manager indicated, the committee were also very impressed with the rectification plan that was presented to them, which has been presented to the councillors here today. And moving forward, they even minuted the fact that the committee endorses the financial statements rectification plan as attached to this report, and note the completeness of the plan, and are satisfied with the amount of resources allocated to undertaking that plan. And that was certainly supported by all committee members. The timelines in the plan are very clear. And the ARIC committee are very committed to moving forward with this plan. And in that sense, I believe we do need to move forward. We need to, of course, there's no doubting there were mistakes made in the past. Let's leave them there. We've got a plan to move forward. Let's do that. And that is the view of the committee also. And this rectification plan will certainly rectify any issues that did happen in the past of funds not being allocated to the correct departments. And I believe that as council, we need to We need to respect the plan, the rectification plan that has been presented to us, and let our staff move forward on that plan, and they are certainly not moving forward by themselves. They're moving forward in conjunction with the Auditor General, Office of Local Government, and I have no doubt that in the first half of next year, certainly, that we should have an end to this issue.
Excuse me,
Thank you.
councillors, please have some respect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Reading. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just my attention was drawn, I guess, to the discussion of the situation analysis, which talks in very non-objective sort of language, and I'm just wondering if the General Manager might have some thoughts about, for example, in the beginning, the first paragraph, it talked about alleviating concerns of the external auditors, and I didn't really find any language in the external audit report that talked about alleviation, it talked about rectification. I just think there was and I reflect that in the plan itself, which is summarised on the following page. It talks about the 20 key items, 3 of which directly contributed to this disclaimer of opinion, and I'm just wondering if there was some further objectivity that could be provided to Council or in the future, what those 20 items actually are in a very direct sense, and I would say that this should be an open disclosure, not in something that's in confidential or something like that. I think that I'm going to ask the question, should these 20 items be actually itemised in a public sense, and is there any confidentiality that would be breached if they were in that sense? So that's the questions of language. The second question I have is, again to the General Manager through you, has there been any consideration of scouting for or even appointing a new set of auditors, given that the auditor that we've had for some number of years got us into these, or allowed these sort of situations to arise without any qualifications in the ongoing financial statements that were put. And I note then, of course, then councillors, mayors and so on have signed off on these accounts in the past without the full knowledge of what the underlying situations were with all of those issues. So the question, I guess, in summary is, will the public get to know what those 20 key items are and so on? What are the high risk items in a public sense? And secondly, are we looking at replacing the auditors with a auditing company that's likely not to get us in the same trouble again?
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. To the General Manager.
Through the chair, thank you, Your Worship. I'll answer the second question first because I think I can answer that one reasonably well, and that is that since those audits of the past have been done, there is a completely new audit team within our auditors. They have new audit directors since that time, and they know our systems inside and out. So in this financial year, where we do require a rigorous audit, it will be a far more detailed look than in previous years because of the issues that have been uncovered from the previous years. We have ultimate faith with the team that we're working with from an audit perspective that they will do a very robust job, because we need a robust job being done. Again, I re-emphasise that I want this process to be as absolutely transparent as possible. With regard to the 20 items, I think we will find on the rectification plan that there are 20 boxes in the column, and those 20 items will refer to those 20 boxes. So whilst we're talking about the number 20, I would suggest counting those columns and those rows in that column, and you will see 20 items. But I'll pass to the director for further information if the director feels that's relevant.
Thank you, GM, through you to the chair. Thank you, councillor. In relation to...
Sorry, councillors, no private conversation, please. Let's just have some respect. We've got the director speaking. Thank you.
Mayor, I was not talking, I was reading. I do hope I'm allowed to read.
Yes, I know, but there was private conversation, please. Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, you mentioned about your first question, I believe, was about where we mentioned we aim to alleviate the concerns of the external auditors. We're alleviating the concerns of the external auditors in relation to substantiation and justification of balances. So they have a concern, we want that concern to go away. So in my language, we're alleviating that concern. That's my terminology. So if you, if we need that changed or want that changed, we'd like that changed, then we can see what we can do. But in my terminology, that's what we would do, is we would alleviate their concerns by making sure that we can substantiate and justify the balances disclosed in the financial statements moving forward. We can't change what went in the past. In relation to the items or the itemisation of the items in the rectification plan, due to items of sensitive nature to council, and now this impacts policies, strategies and personnel, we have quite deliberately cleansed the audit rectification plan for public consumption. We've done this on the advice also from the Auditor General previously, as to why the engagement closing report was not privy to the public. And for those same reasons, the rectification plan as it stands in the public documents has been cleansed of that detail, items which are sensitive and confidential to council, impacting the policies, the strategies and personnel.
Thank you very much, Director. Do we have any other comments? Is this your closing comments? I'm just seeing if any of the other councillors have an item. Sorry, anything to say on this matter? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Let's not forget that it was council staff who brought this issue to our attention, and open and transparently. This issue, from my opinion, is being overdone by some councillors, completely overdone by some councillors. We are on a rectification plan here we're in a meeting now that is live streamed. We're in a situation where everything is being done correctly, everything is being communicated to councillors correctly, and anyone can look at these meetings and see our minutes of our meetings whenever they want to look on the council website or wherever else it is available. So with regard to transparency, there is absolute transparency in this. With regard to the Auditor General's comments and decisions, they've been worked through with the Auditor General by our council staff, and I commend our council staff on what they've done and the fact that it was seen and discovered in the first place. We've lost so much company knowledge, corporate knowledge within this organisation over the last couple of years. Of course things will be missed. And thankfully, things are in there for everyone to see that it will be picked up on later. And it's being rectified. I think this has been completely and utterly overdone by some councillors. For what reason, I have no idea. But I'm very satisfied with what the staff's doing, and I commend them once again for the great work that they're doing in conjunction with the Auditor's Office, in conjunction with our ARIC, and anyone else who's involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Mr General Manager.
Through the Chair, thank you very much. I appreciate some of those comments. Thank you, Councillor. With regard to this whole process, I just want to re-emphasise that from a staff perspective, we are giving this absolute and utter due gravitas, because it is a matter that needs due gravitas. However, I do want to point out that having just completed our internal, what do we call that audit when they start the interim audit? We've just completed an interim audit this week with our auditors, and they were incredibly complimentary, without prompt. They were incredibly complimentary of the progress that we've made thus far. They were incredibly complimentary about the way the office is performing from their viewpoint, and they are the same auditors this year as last. So we took that as a very strong compliment that we were on a good trajectory. So I just wanted to alert the councillors to the fact that our auditors are very pleased with the progress we've made.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Do I have any, before we go into closing, any other comments or concerns or questions? I call upon Councillor Clements for your closing remarks on your motion.
Thank you, and I appreciate this being in front of us today. It's a very important matter. I do note that we've got this unusual response continually from people defensive about the past. Well, I can understand they may be defensive about the past. I reject completely that we've had a loss of corporate knowledge. The mistakes were made with previous corporate knowledge. The mistakes have been picked up by the current corporate knowledge. And we need to say that because we need to be very clear that these aren't the mistakes of our current staff. This is not due to a loss of corporate knowledge. We have great staff. We've got a good financial team who picked this stuff up. I can understand Eric would want to move on. Eric watched this happen and didn't see it happen. So let's be very clear in terms of the community that's listening. We are not going to be bullied or pushed into not asking questions on this process. We will. It's not any dismissiveness or criticism of current staff. We've been completely complimentary the entire way. We have a competent current staff who picked this up. We've got an ARIC that's on board now. Our external audit process has finally woken up. We've got a renewed audit team. Councillors, these are things that need to be discussed in public. These are things that need to be talked about. There is no criticism of the current staff. From my perspective, there is criticism of previous staff, but that's irrelevant. They're gone. Now, let's be very clear. We will continue to ask about this, not because we're trying to drag the past forward. The past is the past. It's been dealt with by this council. We have a new team. That's how it's been dealt with. And we have a team that we endorse thoroughly. But we will continue to ask questions because there are impairments here. There are mistakes which are tying up council staff time today. They are damaging our budget today in terms of resources. And at some point, these things need to come back into our financial statements formally, and we will watch that process and we will talk about that process because ratepayers are not rich. This is not a wealthy shire. The average person pays their rates. It is a struggle for them, and we need to be careful with that money, and I will not be pushed and pressured into not asking questions and making it transparent how we're dealing with their funds. Thank you.
Yes, to the General Manager.
I just want to pass one comment, and that is I don't believe we've had an ARIC prior to 2020. Just for a matter of record, I think that was when the first ARIC was created. I don't know for certain. I would have found out had I thought. But could you help me with that, Councillor? That was my guess. So at least we're aligned on that. Yeah. But I just wanted to point that out that some of the problems that have been identified in our previous audit were prior to 2020.
Okay, there being no further discussion for or against, I put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Councillor Mont did leave at 2:04. I'm not sure whether he voted for or against it, but just if you could note that. Did he? Okay. Okay, excellent. No worries. Okay, all right, that's great. Okay, page 86, everyone. It's item 13.6.
Can I just have
Councillor Richardson.
a point of order, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Councillor Lamont did not raise his hand for or against that motion. So I do believe it should be as abstain from voting, and it should be noted.
We'll just consider that for a moment. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. We'll just consider that. That's true.
Yes.
You either vote for or against it.
Through the chair, clause 11.5, a councillor who is present at a meeting of the council but who fails to vote on a motion put to the meeting is taken to have voted against the motion.
No, it's not. Yeah. So we'll take that as a true record. Is everyone concur with that? Thank you. Okay. Item 13.6, Planning and Development Report.
I'll excuse myself from this item.
Councillor Richardson left the chamber. Councillor Lamont came back into the chamber, 206. Thank you. The recommendation here is that the council receives the Planning and Development Report for the month, and that council receive and note Andrew Watson's written resignation from the Floodplain Risk Management Committee dated 7th of November and thank him for his services to the committee, and that council calls for an expression of interest to fill the vacant position on the Narrabri Floodplain Risk Management Committee. Do I have a mover on that motion? Mover. Councillor Dickinson, seconder.
Apologies, I should have declared non-significant opportunity. Property owner in Narrabri, secondly.
Thank you. Councillor Lamont, no worries, thank you. You'll second that. Thanks very much, Councillor Reading. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor?
No. Just move forward, I think.
That was very affirmative.
Yes.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Bong.
Thank you, Mayor. In this report, I noted there are some previous business of the committee that hasn't been addressed, and one was the question related to the heights of land on that industrial estate area. There was notes made in the committee that I last attended that they would be addressed, and there would be a report provided on what the current status of all of the land heights were going to within that region. And my question is, through you to the committee, are those issues going to be dealt with, or is the answer to the question, or is it just being kicked down the road and nothing is going to happen at all about that quantitative data on what the land heights are right across that land, because it was dealt with in committee and it hasn't been reported on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bong. I put it to the General Manager through to the Director.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through the General Manager, I'll take that on notice. Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Clements.
Yeah, just quickly, the expression of interest, how will we sort of communicate that to the community, please?
To the General Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through the General Manager, through the standard communications consistent with how we've undertaken EOIs previously, social media, committee members may know of a person that has interest in that field, so they've also been tasked with potentially tapping someone on the shoulder.
Thank you very much, Director. Any other comments for or against, councillors? I put it to the council. All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Clements, did you vote against? You didn't? Are you voting for it? For it, excellent. Thank you very much. I just being considerate. Thank you. We've got item 13.7 on page 98, submission to the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal, a review of local government remuneration. It's basically here that the council endorses a submission to the review of local government remuneration as shown as attachment 1 to this report. Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Redding, Councillor Campbell, thank you. Councillor Redding, would you like to speak to this at all, or?
No, I think the submission is very well put together. It is pleasing that they have created a rural large category, and I did, having read through it, did also notice that Narrabri Shire Council was placed in that category, which is pleasing to see, but no, well done on the submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other? Councillor Bohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I was just going to ask a question, if I can, through you to the General Manager. It's talked there about the cost shifting amount of across the state of $1.36 billion. Do we have an estimate, or has there been an estimate undertaken for Narrabri Shire as to what the cost shifting status is in our shire?
To the General Manager.
Through the chair, sadly, I'm going to have to take that on notice. I do know there's been a lot of discussion of local government New South Wales about the cost shifting and this particular issue, so I'll get back to everybody as soon as I can.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any other comments for or against this motion? If not, I'll put it to the meeting. All those in favour, all those against, that's carried. Boggabri CBD, Vickery Park to Anzac Park Master Plan. The recommendation here is that the Council endorse the draft Boggabri CBD Vickery Park to Anzac Park Master Plan to be placed on public exhibition for a period of at least 28 days, and during the exhibition period call for and accept submissions from the public on the plan, and that this report be returned to the Council following a conclusion of this exhibition period. Do I have a mover on that motion? Councillor Richardson, what a surprise. Seconder.
Just the problem with hearing something you probably think I did ages ago. But item 13.8, when I left the room, I thought we were dealing with that.
Oh, we were dealing with the.
Can I be excused just for a moment?
And I thought my
Councillor.
fellow councillor, and that's why she walked out, was 13.8.
No, it's 13.6, the DA.
Okay.
The DA applications, because.
Well, I'm returning an interest, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
My confusion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lamont. Councillor Lamont left the chamber at 2:13. Councillor Campbell is back in the chamber after an absence of 43 seconds. Thank you. Tongue in cheek. Do I have a seconder to that motion, by the way? Councillor Dickinson, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would, thank you. This is a highly anticipated project for the Boggabri community. It does look very appealing. It's a great start. I do still hold some concerns, and I'm sure the community will as well once they get to see this. Hopefully from Friday, I think it was released, our OCM agenda. I do have a few comments firstly to make about the proposed architectural planning, and then I will have some questions that if they could be answered, and there's nothing new that wasn't asked for at the councillor briefing either. So a couple of comments on it. I'm a bit disappointed the attention to detail has been missed. So for example, the parking on Laidlaw Street is not the correct angle. It's a little attention to detail. There is photos of the main street of Boggabri which aren't current. These photos, if you do a quick Google search of Main Street Boggabri, that is your top picture. I'm very disappointed it's not a current photo by them. I'm disappointed that 2 of the pages in that report are hand-drawn. I just think the attention to detail has lapsed. I'm also very disappointed that the organisation and council didn't meet with the community which was proposed at the start of the year, which leads me to one of my questions, and it may end up being with Councillor Dickinson's approval that an amendment needs to be made. So I would like to actually put in there that the community have the opportunity to speak with council in regards to this, such as the community consultation that they were told was happening. I don't think it's sufficient enough that we're just putting on public exhibition and expect responses. I think we need to be out there and have a planned meeting. So that's one question. Is there dates planned? I haven't seen anything advertised. And where are we actually going to be advertising this? I think it's something of great significance for the Boggabri community. We need to have it visual. We can't just say, hey, go to the library, check it out, it's online. I don't think that's sufficient enough for the community. And just another quick example as well about the attention to detail. In a non-funded section of it, it's got artworks for buildings per se. Many of those buildings have actually already been done. I do note that there's pictures of companies that don't even exist in our area anymore as well. So this is the attention to detail that has been highly missed in this master plan that I don't think shows respect to the community. So question 2, I think the community also deserves an accurate answer of when they would be able to see some design elements of the community hall, library buildings as well. So whether that needs to be an amendment 3, council advertise the project on socials, the green flyer, library and in community spaces. And 4, that council staff come to Boggabri on set dates in January to assist the understanding and completing the submissions as required. Happy for fellow councillors to have some input in that, whether it needs to be an amendment or not. And if I could just have some responses on those hopefully proposed dates.
Through
the General Manager.
Through the Chair, I just want to make some comments and possibly we can have some more from the Acting Director. I understand that everybody has already been contacted that attended the original community engagement exercise to alert them to dates that we are being. When were the letters sent out? Do we know? Oh, sorry, my misunderstanding through the whispering. Sorry, they will be emailed once this council meeting's finished. So my fault. We're out there on the 21st of December and the 17th of Jan. We will go more if required. It was my impression that once the master plan is secured and we determine the footprint and that side of things, that a working group would be formed with members of the community to work through more details on that proposal. And I believe Evan will be able to speak to more details because you asked about 4 questions, not 2.
Sorry, can I just have some clarity on those dates again?
Through the Chair, 21st of December and 17th of Jan 24.
And where have these been advertised? What time are they being and where are they hosting at? Because 21st is Thursday.
General Manager.
Obviously, we have to get this passed and then we'll advertise. They'll be held at the courthouse on Thursday and then again on the 17th. So that'll be where we'll start the first lot of consultation. Plus then everyone will be able to also put anything in online or through a QR.
I think 2 days' notice for community consultation is very poor. I did express that concern at a councillor briefing. I have expressed the whole way through this project my concerns. It's one of those cases, it is what it is sort of thing. But I would like, especially that 17th of January date, to be heavily advertised, querying whether there is enough space at the courthouse, because in our previous engagement that space was found not sufficient enough for the amount of people. So we might need to reconsider that location, although it is the centre of what we're talking about of the CBD So it might be premise to have a little walk around. And will the designers or architectures be there to provide feedback?
Well, I hadn't planned on obviously the 21st, but we'll look at the 16th and see what feeds out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Acting Director. Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, just a quick question. I might have missed it somewhere, but I see the diagrams here for the hall and the library. Were there any toilets attached to these buildings at all? Does anyone know? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You got one there that says there's food in one corner, but they don't need a toilet. They might have to run.
To the Acting Director through the General Manager.
Thank you, General Manager. Yes, there is toilets considering the plan, same as we talked about kitchens and we talked about library facilities. But as I said, this is a high-level concept design. We're trying to get the placement right, and then from the placement we'll have a look at, the high detailed architect's plan.
Councillor Bohm.
Thank you, Mayor. You can never have enough toilets in the Shire. Apparently, I want to endorse Councillor Richardson's concerns here. I actually think that the community's been let down a little bit on this one. I think that there are some very active people who have had a lot of input into this, and I think that a much earlier consultation back to that community before we got to this stage would have been pretty useful. So I just don't think it's the type of gold standard that I would expect when it comes to community participation. And the second part of it really is, for us to front up at the end of the year and say you've got until the beginning of February to come out from under your rock and give an honest opinion and participation. January really isn't the best month for anybody's participation. I would argue that we should extend that significantly well into February to have any close-off time. It really isn't a useful time for people to get together as communities and pull together with ideas. This isn't about the individuals. It's about groups of people coming together and having a good conversation about what's going on and what their town, what their place and space is going to be. That's what we're attempting to do, and I just don't think we're attempting quite hard enough.
Thank you. Councillor, to the General Manager.
Through the Chair. Look, I'll take those comments and both Councillor Richardson's comments as well on board. I just want to point out that I thought I was reasonably clear that we would organise additional dates for community participation if necessary. Yeah, so we're always very open to that. What council staff have been trying to do with the resource restrictions that we have had over the last 6 months, losing staff, gaining staff, trying to undertake community exercise and having a large delivery programme is to try and fit everything in. I accept the criticisms that this one has not been perfect for sure. We will endeavour to make it a good process though, because at the end of the day, community participation is the key to making a successful outcome. So whether we start construction of this before the end of the financial year or slightly after, the community having a say is more important than when we physically start, because the key determinant is the time it's finished. I still believe we have time to complete this project within the operational plan for 2025, which is when it was originally scheduled. So whilst we may have not got it perfect leading into the project, I'm hoping that we will deliver a project within the overall project time frame with the appropriate level of community participation. So I do hope that it's salvageable as we move forward, and we will be flexible in terms of community voice.
Councillor, would you like a closing statement at all? And being no further comments for or against?
Just before I do closing, Councillor Bowen did point out a good point. This time period is very hard for most people. School holidays, Christmas, New Year's. Putting it out on public exhibition from today and then closing at the 1st of February doesn't allow the schools to be involved. They're actually on leave. So I would ask if councils and council directors are happy, could we extend it till perhaps the 15th of February? And making sure that those schools are incorporated into this consultation phase. I'm just mindful principals, teachers and that also do go away.
Through the chair, I am in your hands. If you would like it to be the 28th of February, then that's also fine, because all I alluded to before is we are trying to endeavour to commence the actual project construction as soon as possible, and therefore timeframes are important. However, I cannot see 2 weeks being make or break, providing that facilitates the level of community voice that we believe there is in Boggle Brae.
Can I also do a follow-on question? With having that date extended to the 15th of February, will it still allow the final submissions and this to come back to council chamber in the February ordinary council meeting?
Doubtful. I've just been told but I think doubtful, knowing how things go. So I would say we'll give it best endeavours, but I won't commit my staff to delivering something when it's also a high period of leave for staff over the Christmas period. I know we're always optimistic in terms of what we can deliver, but I think that's cutting it fine.
The only reason I'm asking this is because come early next year, council's briefing and meetings is generally on the next financial budget. So I am conscious I want to get this project moving along again.
So
So
through the chair, what I would say is if councillors are amenable to a supplementary item being presented in the week, a few days before the council meeting, then we probably would be able to achieve that timeline with the consultation continuing to the 15th.
Yeah, I would very much appreciate that, and I'm sure the community would as well. Thank you.
Councillor, you can amend that motion. That's yours without it being a formal amendment. It is your motion. So, do you have an amendment you wish to want to make a change to that motion, or
To the 15th.
change it to the 15th? Yeah. Okay. You happy with that? Seconder, Councillor Dickinson. Yep. Okay, if everyone's happy with that. Any other concerns, or we might put it to the council? All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Campbell. Have a great Christmas. I would like to propose that the next items, items 14.1 through to 14.4, which are applications for concessional use of the Crossing Theatre. Councillor Lamont back in the chamber. I'd like to, with the consent of the council, I'd like to propose that we deal with these as items by exception, which means grouping them together. If any councillor intends to vote against any of these, or has a conflict of interest, or there's some reason why we can't vote for them as a group, then please let me know now. Otherwise, I'm proposing that we just vote on them as a block, if that's okay. Councillor Boll, are you happy with that? I don't believe so. I think we can just put it, and all I'm doing is just asking if there's any intention to vote against that by any councillor.
I'm happy to move that be the case.
Excellent. So if you move, can I have a mover for that for the whole block of votes? A seconder, Councillor Clements. Thank you very much. So I'll just read these items out. I actually need to read them out formally. Could you? The first one is that the council approve the concessional use rate of 50% of room hire to St Francis Xavier School. The next one is the council approve the concessional use rate of 50% of the room hire to ADFAS Arts for 7 lectures scheduled in 2024. The third item is, and this is for 14.3, the council approve the concessional use rate of 50% to the Narrabri Arts of Stedford Incorporated. Item 14.4 is that the council approve the concessional use rate of 50% to the Narrabri Amateur Fishing Club. Councillor, would you like to speak to your motion? First up, your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, all of those organisations are befitting of our support, I do know that they're very strongly supported by, this is the community at work, this is the community at large, and this is our town hall. And I really think that the critical thing is that we recognise that this is our town hall, and we really do offer these organisations that work extremely hard to stay afloat, to work on behalf of their community. And I do know, for example, on a couple of these examples, that the amount of the hall hire itself is equivalent to almost half of their operating expenses. So it's a very, very substantial amount. So it's particularly useful for that. And can I also say that, and I'm only aware at an arm's length side of it, is that, for example, with the ADFAS meetings that mayors and general managers have been invited to every lecture of ADFAS for some number of years, and to the best of my knowledge, not one general manager has ever attended. So can I suggest that that maybe this general manager might make an exception next year and have a look at some of these great events that are being run.
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Clements.
Yeah, look, I think this is, a great outcome for what's been a bit of a policy process, and as a councillor on a former council, this is always a struggle. This is actually our town hall, and it should be accessible to groups of meagre means. That's not a criticism of those groups. They're small organisations, and they don't run big fat budgets. And I think this is a great outcome, and I want to be on record as saying that, because I want this to continue, that we make this an accessible venue for our smaller community groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from councillors? There being no further comments, I put it to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That was good. We move then to item 14.5. Which is the youth strategy, the public exhibition of the youth strategy, that the council endorsed the draft 2022 to 2026 youth strategy to be placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days and call for and accept submissions from the public, and that the report be returned to council following the conclusion of that public exhibition. Do I have a mover on that? Councillor Richardson, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to this, please?
I think all the information's there. Happy to endorse it, put it on public exhibition.
Excellent. I'll just call upon the Director Osling, through the General Manager, just to briefly speak about this item.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, through the General Manager. The staff are very proud to present this draft strategy for the elected body's consideration. I might add that it's been underpinned by a significant amount of community engagement, which has been conducted by a very talented engagement team members who have actively gone out and spoken to young people to understand what their needs and aspirations were, recognising that they are our future leaders, particularly the Youth Council, who was a big part of completing this body of work as well. So this is one instance where having an exhibition over the December period is actually beneficial for particularly youth and school-aged children, that they're not at school and caught up in their busy curricular activities. So, and I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank the governance team for collating a lot of this wonderful information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Are there any further comments for or against? There being no more comments, I put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Move on to item 15.1, draft drought management plan. The recommendation here is that the council endorses the Narrabri Shire Council draft management plan, once again placed on public exhibition for at least 28 days and then reported back to council. At some stage, council will create some kind of corporate branding prior to formal adoption of the drought management plan. Do I have a mover on this? Councillor Bohm, seconder. Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Bohm, would you like to speak to this matter?
Thank you, Mayor. I do so with a couple of questions, if I may. Look, I think this is, well, it's part of what we've got to do anyway. We've got to really make sure that we have what I would call resilience backing up what we're doing. So, what my questions would be then in this area of drought management, I want to know whether we really strongly valued future industrial needs in this, current and future industrial needs, because I do know some cities around and shires around New South Wales where the availability of water for the community is somewhat limited by the amount of water taken through industrial uses. So, have we created that plan? Do we have that resilience in mind moving forward? And also regarding in that space then the availability of future water and what the capacity of our bores are currently at, and do we have full confidence in that? Because again, there are a couple of other shires that have recently, where it's come to my notice anyway, where they've found that some of their bores are actually quite inactive and would take a significant amount of getting going again. So through you to the General Manager, Mayor, if I could pose those questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. General Manager.
Through the Chair, thank you very much. Yes, we had quite an extensive workshop that was led by Dirk Joel, our Water Manager, on this particular issue. I can assure councillors that all aspects of water were considered as part of this preparation for the drought management plan, and it forms a small portion of the overall IWCM, if I've got the letters in the right order there, Integrated Water Cycle Management, IWCM programme. So both municipal, industrial and other uses for water are all considered as part of this process. And the focus about the drought management plan is more around getting too close to water limits and having responsible water use messaging within our community to make sure we avoid breaching those limits that we presently have. My understanding is we have sufficient room for growth at this point in time, so we're not pressing on those limits extraordinarily at the moment, but it's obviously going to be a hotter topic into the future once we do have significant development on our books.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Clements.
Look, I note that we're putting this out to the community for consultation, so I'm not overly exercised at this point, but I will vote against this. I'm not against having a drought management plan. What I am against is, we discussed this at the briefing, there's no reference to our water resources, there's no reference to our allocation, there's no reference to any of that. We're using triggers that don't actually have any bearing on our capacity to produce water, particularly underground water, which basically most of the Shire is on. If you're on the river, then drought triggers are very relevant. If you're not on the river, you're on underground water, drought triggers are not that relevant. And I'm not going to see the Shire go brown, I'm not going to see Weewar go brown or Narrabri go brown because we've got some external drought trigger that actually has no bearing on our capacity to produce water. And that's my problem with this. So I will vote against this. I expect that it will go to the public. I'm not overly exercised at this point. I will be vehemently against it if it tries to be put to council in this current form. There is no reference to our capacity to produce water, to our allocation, to our entitlement. We are simply using an arbitrary external trigger, and I'm not going to see our town turn brown because of arbitrary triggers. The trigger should be how much water have we got, what's our daily capacity to produce, and how's our entitlement tracking for the season. That's how you manage water, particularly underground water. So I will vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do we have any other comments for or against you?
It's a supplementary question.
Yes. You may stand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really quite related to our future industrial use, and you know we have a Narrabri to inland port. We did have a SAP at one stage. At some future stage, this may actually occur. So what I'm wanting to know is, you know, the degree to which, and I think this probably goes to where Councillor Clements was starting to look at, is that the future water, or our future needs, really doesn't have much bearing on where we're currently sitting. And I don't know, in my reading of what we've got here, I don't see the evidence that we've really deeply looked at that. And given that there never was an effective business plan for the Narrabri to inland port or the SAP, then I'm not really sure that we're in a position now to, you know, with this drought policy, that we've really come up with a plan. And this is my question from the General Manager: have we actually factored in what the future industrial demands are going to be, and are we capable of meeting those needs?
To the Director, through the General Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager, I might just chip in. It's on the periphery of my remit. Councillor, what you're alluding to is absolutely valid concerns from an ongoing sustainability perspective, but it comes down to the relevant vehicles. So there are several vehicles around resilience and water and environmental management. This is one of them. Others include the IWCM, as the General Manager mentioned, which does consider capacity, growth trends and required infrastructure. The other body of work is around our development control plan framework, which Council can expect in the new year. That will contain principles around development standards and water sensitive urban design, WSUD, which is an important consideration. The other body of work, which will probably be foreshadowed by the IWCM review, is around development contributions with the headworks charges, requirements and considerations. So there's several bodies of work which intersect with one another. The umbrella for which is the IWCM framework. So it's absolutely appropriate that the drought management plan has a line of sight, which I believe it does in its draft form, to that IWCM framework. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or concerns? I put this to them. Did you want a closing statement? You're fine. Nothing else. Okay, we'll put this to the meeting. All those in favour of this motion? All those against? Thank you, Councillor Clements. It's carried. Got item 15.2, notice of motion, Rangarai Road advocacy. The motion here is that council writes to the local member, Mr. Roy Butler, relevant ministers, both federal and state, and any other relevant parties as needed in order to seek funding or co-funding to seal the Rangarai Road MR 357, including the Bollog Creek crossing. That council simultaneously investigates if and how much monetary value could be co-contributed and identify any grants possible and to apply as required.
Mr. Chair, I was a few minutes late, so I missed the opportunity early to declare an interest. So item 15.2 and 15.3, as per my standing declaration, I don't deal with the member for Parliament ratepayer Narrabri Shire Council interactions. in my role, I've been Chinese wall from that. But this is a non-pecuniary honour certificate for appearances. I'll leave the meeting for these two.
Thank you, Councillor Clements. 2:45, Councillor Clements leaves the chamber. No worries. Councillors, do I have a mover of that motion? Councillor Richardson. Do I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Bohm. Oh, I think Councillor Bohm got in. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would. I would firstly like to just slightly amend it to Council Wright and organise a meeting with, if possible. I think that's something, in hindsight, writing that, talking with a few councillors, we need a bit more action in it.
Yep.
Yeah, so Rangarai Road, it's not sustainable to have a council grader there 24/7, and it's getting to the point that's what it needs. The amount of traffic on that road, the amount of safety concerns. I know we have written to local members, ministers in the past, unfortunately with no assistance in response. I don't see how relevant ministers can say that Rangarai Road is high safety concern and co-contribute to Tamworth and Gunnedah Shire, now that Narrabri does have a little bit of surplus that they could use to co-contribute, that they can't help us. The road is still a safety issue. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't advocate for 15.2 and item 15.3, and we do have a fatality on that road. There is several crashes that probably aren't reported, that you would like to have in the reporting system. You see high peak hours, other road users don't slow down in dust. Council is also struggling with water, so they can't water the road to grade it. It's taking a long time for the water carts to go to town to get water to bring back, which is another issue in itself. And I don't think it is sustainable for council to keep grading this road. I'm not sure what else we can do, but definitely that's why we're here today. We need to advocate for Rangarai Road, as this motion is, to investigate how we're going to get it sealed. Yes, and I do understand, as the council comments, it's not in this financial year, budget. We do need shovel-ready projects, and this should be a shovel-ready project. So come next financial year, we are ready to go with this. I'll pass over. Councillor Bowen and I did speak about some different avenues perhaps we could go down, and I will let Councillor Bowen speak on that because that was his idea, but I do support it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I am strongly support of this and also the next motion. We desperately need some very good, high quality, shovel-ready projects. So, if the mover would be up to this, councillor, at the very least, this needs to go into next year's budget. Absolutely, it needs to slot straight in. This road, particularly Rangarai Road, and I've driven it a number of times. Coincidentally, I didn't know that this motion was coming, but and it's not a safe road, particularly when there's traffic on it. It's very dusty, and I've actually caught up with a few people who live out that way who are saying that it's extremely difficult to actually drive onto the road when traffic's going onto it because they all drive very quickly, close together, and it's very dusty. So some people have waited 15 minutes to get onto this road just to actually join the traffic because it is so spaced. They have to wait. So I'm wondering then, and I'll take your advice on this as to whether we could even put more action. At the very least, we need to get some indication. I know the staff have said we don't have enough time or money. Well, I mean, we've got an extra $300,000 according to the Director of Finance about the extra unexpected revenue from interest. Now, might have been the reason I asked him that question, but it was. I think I'd like to even create more action of that. It absolutely needs to go into next year's budget, and at the very least, we should be scoping now what the actual cost of getting it to being a shovel-ready project is. I'm not too sure whether that's really your point too. We actually should know at a very accurate level exactly what would it take to get this one through the gate. So very strongly supportive of it. And I would argue very strongly we need to actually find some dollars to investigate that and to put it and to get it ready to roll as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just call upon the General Manager just to speak to that.
Through the chair. Look, it would be remiss of me as your General Manager to not provide some sobering advice. Just to take a step back to June this year when we approved the operational plan, I just want to point out the Rangirai Road wasn't even in the delivery plan, which is the 3-year horizon when we discussed our operational plan. And our operational plan was projecting expenditure of about $70-something million when staff first went through it. We presented a picture of some $60 million worth of expenditure to our councillors at that point in time, and it didn't include either of these two projects over these two resolutions. We managed to trim the budget to $45 million through last year's operational plan approvals, and then we ended up having to add another $18 million to that from carry forwards from the previous year, which then took this year's operational plan delivery to something of the order of, if my maths is about right, $63 million. The Rangirai Road project, which would be of the order of $10 million plus to deliver, plus Capital Road, which I'm advised is significantly more work. Again, I'm just leaving that thought there with you in terms of hearing that we should be able to cater for that. We should be able to throw this extra work at staff. Well, actually, this would all be externally thrust to consultants and contractors. But again, the onus on staff is to project manage those consultants and designers and contractors to ensure that we do get good product when we actually do get the grants to deliver these projects. So whilst I am totally in favour of doing good infrastructure for our community, it is the job of the councillors around this table to try and budget prudently, to not overload not only the staff within this organisation but also the contracting world that simply cannot deliver the pipeline of work that we want to thrust at it at the moment. So my advice is if we approve these two resolutions, and again, you are at liberty to approve that, and I will not argue against you approving whatever you choose to approve. However, I will be asking you, certainly by the time of the next operational plan, to substitute the works that we had put into the delivery plan for subsequent years to be severely trimmed. So that will be a tough decision and a tough discussion come June.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor. I was just going to make a comment there, and thank you, the General Manager. The intention of this notice of motion, as I see it, is the council is seeking to get parties at the table so there's good background information before it's raised in the budget session going forward. And my experience has always been that you do not touch what the community told you in your community strategic plan. When you develop your delivery program, that's what you stick to for the budget going forward. Otherwise, we've ended up with what we just talked about today, 3 years of unaudited financials. They parked it all into a whip and Tech One couldn't cope with it and all that sort of stuff. So I support in principle the motion, but I also endorse what the General Manager is saying, And I think if the councillors were to get some further information like the council law is seeking, we may be in a better position next year to be good budget managers and look at what projects can be done. The other comment I make, and as you are aware, Mr Mayor, I couldn't make the last meeting because Councillor Clements and I were with the Minister Moriarty talking about resources for regions, right? What's going to happen with that? Well, this is an ideal project for that, but that debate hasn't been finished yet, and the government is throwing the balls in the air. The Regional Development Act is being reviewed, and they're hoping to set up an advisory council, and from that will come, only for 12 months, from that will come, they've got the working regions 250 million, other way around, 350 million, and the Regional Development Fund Trust of 250 million. So they're going to work out where they want to put it. Now, let's be real. I've been around long enough, and some in the room have been. When a state government changes, they're going to wipe everything that the former government do, find another way, then rebudget and roll it all out again. That's how it works. That's how it works. So the bottom line here is to work with the government of the day. And I know our local member, he hasn't been to this chamber since I've been here, and I'm really happy that he's being invited, because he should have been invited and had a very close relationship with this council, irrespective of what political party he represents. But he's a very good member, and I'm sure in him organising mining-related councils to go to that meeting with Moriarty, that he was the driving force for that. So I think he'll be a very welcome recipient to this resolution of council to have initial discussions. That's where I see it, Mr Mayor. But I'm not voting against what the General Manager said. I think that's something we need to take caution with, and we'll get that opportunity next year. And even after that, when the new council is elected in September, you get another bite of the cherry of the Community Strategic Plan, and you work out your delivery program from there. Final point I make, be wary. I know Tamworth, Gunnedah Shire are really keen to open up Manila and Barraba, and to make sure that the road between Narrabri Shire and Gunnedah Shire is sealed, and I think this might have been a regional road at one stage. And local government got embraced with here you are, here's your regional roads, we'll give you some money to do the maintenance of it, and it was a pitiful amount, pitiful. And so here we are as a council, we've got this huge risk. I was in the main street of Boggabri the other day, and a senior member of their community, well attached to all what's going on in a little community like Boggabri, that's the first thing that she grabbed me by the shirt collar and said, look, this is very dangerous, and that's why I'm backing Councillor Richardson here on this. It's a great concept, and so is the next item, 15.3, how do we fund it? Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, look, I commend the councillor for putting this forward, but I do realise, and I hope everyone else in the room realises, this council has a huge backlog of flood damage to get done. Massive amount of money of extra work that has to get done by the Shire, within the Shire, without the regular stuff that happens. And it just worries me that we're going to get bogged down in this road and that road, and we're going to not concentrate on getting done what we should have already got done by now. And the money that comes in just seems to be taking so long for us to start some of this flood damage. And I just ask that we try and get some of the backlog out of the way before we push forward into some extra roads that we need to take care of.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll ask Councillor Richardson to close her arguments.
Thank you, councillors, for your feedback. I do acknowledge the hard work that our council employees and contractors are doing trying to fix the floods, and acknowledge that it will take several years to get them back to standard, and fingers crossed that there's no floods in between that time to prolong it. I do think my intention of this is we need a shovel-ready project. We had 1 kilometre of Ringarai Road on our budget. So that needs to be considered in this. There was. So that 1 kilometre, I can't exactly remember when, but it did change from that road to another priority road. The issue with item 15.2, it's more about getting a shovel-ready project. How are we meant to get grants for a project if there's no underpinning development or design to actually apply for the grant? How do we know how much money we're going to need? How do we know how much money we have if they say, if you co-contribute, we will match it or we will exceed it? So that is the intent of this. We need that information, especially so next financial year, as our Shire roads priorities are always changing, that this particular road is highlighted and with, I don't know, with just everything we can say that it's one, we've passed the pub test and investigated it properly, and we've realistically considered it as a council. And I would love to see a cost analysis of how much it's costing currently council to have the graders, the water carts, the rollers, everything like that on Rangaroo Road per year versus how much it's going to cost to seal it. Because I'm sure if you had those analysis, you will see, for example, in 5 years, you've paid for itself. Then you've also allowed those graders freed up for other dirt roads. Our Shire is very large. We can't have graders just for one specific road. So that is one of the intentions of this. Yeah, that's just what I'll leave it with. The other example I will use, for example, is Harperary Road. So it's I think it was a 3 to 4 year delivery. So you've got half of the road in one financial year getting designed. This financial year, the second part gets designed. Then the actual sealing occurs next financial year. So that is 3 years, which is funded to get it sealed. Rangaroo Road and council cannot sustain that road to be gravel for another 3 to 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. There being no further comments for or against, councillors, I put it to the council. All those in favour? All those against? That motion's carried. Item 15.3. This motion is that the council writes to the local member, I guess you want to change that again, potentially, writes to the local member, Mr Roy Butler, relevant ministers, both federal and New South Wales, and any other relevant parties as needed in order to seek funding or co-funding to seal and upgrade Mount Capitar Road, and that council simultaneously investigates if and how much monetary value could be co-contributed and identify any grants if possible, and to apply as required. I assume you would like to move that motion. Do I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Bowen, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. Very similar to item 15.2, Mount Capitar Road. It is the gateway to one of the biggest tourisms Narrabri Shire has. This road, especially in heinous weather conditions, is at the peak of use for cars and trucks using it. In spaces there is not enough width for a truck and a car to pass. You are seeing a lot of people go up in wet weather to see the elusive pink slug. I think it would be a very big shame for that road to be deemed unusable, and I do say that with some conscience, because if we're not paying attention to this particular road and getting items organised now for it, there will have to come to a point where the safety concern, that road is shut. And that's what I want to avoid. So again, with this notice of motion, I'm not wanting to put additional work on staff at this particular point, other than to make sure, the same as the other one, we know a rough costing, so we know what to apply for grants. We know how much money we have to co-contribute, and we're actually saying to the community, we are taking this seriously, and we have a plan that is going to stop this road from being shut if and when that does occur. I do know that this will be a very extensive road to upgrade, but again, this is Narrabri Shire, this is Mount Capitar, this is our tourism. So yeah, same as before, it's a very critical road, I believe, for our Shire.
Be nice if the national parks would take it on again. Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. Councillor,
A question,
Councillor
Ms. Mayor,
Lamont.
before I speak either way. Mount Capitar Road, that goes through the national park, doesn't it? It's a national park road.
It is, yep.
Yeah,
It goes to the national.
to the national park, and it's our road to it. Is that what you're talking about?
That goes, it actually goes
Yeah,
through.
yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So let me go back to my comments on the previous item. Resources for regions is one aspect to this, but voluntary planning agreements for the impacts on communities from mining-related activities is a huge issue in this community. And if the council in the past hadn't negotiated issues that they could foresee in their asset plans, if the asset plans are in place, that is, so they knew what the life of the plan was and the traffic counts, etc., etc. That's the sort of argument that you have with the mining proponents. And tourism's another one of those aspects. And that's where Narrabri might have thought they've done very well in the past with mining camps and the voluntary planning agreements that they've negotiated. But there's more to it. The mining entities are making billions of dollars, billions. And we as a council should be sitting down and talking to them when there's an opportunity for an extension of a mine, the opportunity for a voluntary planning agreement raises its head. The word voluntary is disgraceful. It should be a planning agreement, locked in, negotiate with the council what roads are going to be affected. And when you look at Mount Capitar, as Councillor Richardson rightly said, you look at our tourism assets in this shire, they are limited, but they're beautiful icons that other councils don't have. We're very, very, very fortunate. And so this should be supported. And once again, I go back to the General Manager's comment. We're talking about the workload that needs to be done by the staff. We're talking about feasibility studies here, 150 for the other one, 200,000 for this one. And that has to be done. One final thing I'll just remind you of, and you would all be aware of it, come about March next year, the government start to March, May, starting to say, well, we've got all this money to spend. Are you shovel ready? And if you're not shovel ready, you've got nowhere to go. You've got nowhere to go, because if you're shovel ready, the government works on a philosophy that we don't spend it, we lose it. Now, that goes against the grain of our budgeting, but the bottom line is, sure, we've got a lot of work to do. There's no guarantee we'll get this done next year. We've got a duty of care to our communities to aim towards these things, and we feed them into the future community strategic plans and our development program, and we'll have to juggle things around if they're a higher priority, if that's what the community wants. Bear in mind, we're here for the community. We're not here for our individual selves. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lamont. I might just call. Might put a question to the acting director through the general manager, just in terms of the ownership of that road. If he could clarify that, please.
Thanks, General Manager, through the Mayor. Yes, Councillor, about 95% of that road up to the National Park Trails, it does travel through the National Park, but it's only really the top seal section that National Parks maintain. The rest is gazetted council road. Not from past discussions, but yes, we've had preliminary looks at both roads. I think Capitar Road we're looking around $17.5 million, and Rangarai was somewhere around 11. So we have had a look. We had done some preliminary designs, but to do 11 or a 17k stretch is a fair stretch on our resource and our design team. So we want to make sure we've got some lead or some real good indication to dedicate that. It's about a 3-month design, so it takes some time.
Thank you very much, Acting Director. Councillor Redding.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, I do commend Councillor Richardson on these motions coming forward, but I also expressed the same concerns that Councillor Dickinson did on the last motion. We have a huge backlog of work to get through. And it does take a lot of time to do an appropriate design and investigation on a road, to bring an accurate figure back on what it's going to cost. And as Mr. Harris just said, you know, it could be a period of 3 months. That's a lot of additional work for our staff. And we do not have the 150,000 for Ringrai Road or the 200,000 for Capital Road within our budget. I have no issue with these discussions being brought forward within the next budget and funds being allocated, although, you know, something's got to give to go somewhere else. But for the present time, I'm just not comfortable with putting this additional pressure on our staff, finding this additional money, because it's got to come from somewhere. Something's got to give to something else. What are we going to give up? What do we want our level of service to be to the community? Do we want to take something away from there to put to these? I'm sorry, but I am just not comfortable in voting for either of these motions right now.
Any other comments for or against? Councillor Bohm.
Look, thank you, Mayor. I'm quite supportive of this and the previous motion on the basis we've talked about that we need to have shovel-ready projects for when the opportunity arises. If staff, if we don't have the staffing capacity to do it, then that is another issue as well. But I'm also, maybe it's a question for the General Manager through you, is it possible, particularly with this road, given that there's got very significant Commonwealth contribution to this, because there is Commonwealth infrastructure at the top, there is vital communications infrastructure at the top. If this road, if there's a landslip on Mount Coyer, for example, it could be 12 months before road access is available. This is a critical infrastructure road. I think we need to get through our local member, as it's intimated here, get our local member to work with state and federal agencies to say this is of a state significance to begin with, and maybe our advocacy, this is more a case of advocacy than it is for direct funding in itself. So I think the effort, my view is the effort would be put into those points of advocacy, and I've, over the last couple of years, I've had a number of discussions with very senior people in parks. Parks are very, very keen to work in a collaborative arrangement with council to come up with, actually find a solution for this. This isn't necessarily a design case to begin with. This is a case of working, how do we actually get this road, which we are lumbered with, we are lumbered with this road that's a really critical piece of infrastructure, and that's really an unfair impost on us as Shire that we actually should be running this road. It should be really national parks and federal agencies right the way down to the Shire boundary. In fact, even back to the very lower parts of those roads, and the Mount Coyer landslip is there, ready to be happening. The state government people tell me that it's not that far away. and this road could close for 12 months or 2 years. So I really urge that this needs to be on our list as a high priority to get it sorted, and maybe there's an opportunity somewhere down the track where we actually don't have the direct responsibility for this road, because I just think that it's far more important than that. It's, yes, we get the benefit from the tourism, but I actually think it's much greater than that as a point of urgency.
Councillor Dickinson. Oh, sorry, can I just ask the General Manager, could you just briefly
Well,
comment?
thank you, Your Worship. Look, again, I don't want to seem like a negative Nelly, but I just want to re-emphasise something that I just said for the last motion. And it comes back to the point that has been made a number of times. We need to be ready with some shovel-ready projects. We had that very discussion during our operational plan when we trimmed close to $70 million back to $45 million. And the discussion at that time was, we need to give staff the ability to create some shovel-ready projects with the projects and programs we already have on our books. We discussed Caputar Road through our Resources for Regions debate last year to the tune of $2 million, which would have actually had a relatively small effect in terms of the works that we're proposing here. So it's not as if those discussions haven't happened in the past, and not 6 months ago as a council we prioritised Rangirai Road and Caputar Road out of the programme. The confusion from my perspective as a GM, whilst tasking staff who are working incredibly hard to deliver this operational plan, is suddenly there are some new urgent shovel-ready projects that we have to get ready for to the tune of $350,000 worth of work. And again, I'm not telling you to not approve these resolutions because you've already approved one and this is going to be a second, but we have to acknowledge that it's not a workload issue for staff in terms of we can slot it in, because staff are very, very busy delivering $45 million worth of work when this organisation traditionally and continually, as of last year, only achieves a maximum of $15 million. The pipeline from a contracting perspective doesn't seem to want to be able to or capable of delivering more than $15 to $20 million in this region. So I caution you in terms of adding more high priority work to create more pressure on staff, whether it's externally funded or internally delivered. It just creates pressure. And I need you to understand that that's what it does. Whilst there is a significant community need, and I completely agree with that, I've seen the Facebook posts, I've seen the desire, and I want to deliver that for you, but I also want to caution you in terms of making prudent decisions and ensuring you don't pressure your own organisation into a lack of delivery through stress. That's the only two appeals that I have, because again, I will re-emphasise, you are at liberty to make these decisions, but in an environment where we are running a $5.7 million loss in this financial period, to only continue to add to that potential loss and to not endeavour to create savings rather than additional costs may be viewed not prudently sustainable. So I just want to caution you in that regard from a genuine desire to ensure that we're all very clear on what we're doing here. And it's certainly not that I don't advocate for these projects, because I absolutely do.
Councillor Dickinson, you had your hand up when I handed to the GM.
I did, and I think the GM's just stolen my thunder actually, because we have a strategic plan. It has been decided, and in that strategic plan there would be shovel-ready jobs. There should be a list, and that's what we came here to put forward. Not to put it forward and then think, oh no, we might change that to there, or might change it to that. Those lists are done. It's ready to go. The guys out in the field are flat strapped, and they don't need us telling them, no, we don't want you to do that road, we want you to do something else. There's a lot of things that come into it. average daily traffic counts. When that happens, it's the amount of traffic that road, that determines how the road gets dealt with and how it appears on the list. The more traffic, the higher up the list it becomes. And I'm not voting for this as I did at the last.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Richardson, I assume this is your closing?
Yeah, happy to close. Just to reiterate, there is nowhere in this notice of motion that says council to design. There is nowhere. It is saying council right to, what we've done several times in the past. Council right to. And I have put in organise a meeting because we have wrote to these people previously, and I believe the response we get is a generic response. Hence, if we organise a meeting to meet face to face, yes, there is some council time for that meeting. I'll put my hand up, I'll go meet and greet with these people and say, this is our issue, exactly as the motion says. What I'm asking, and part of the answer is in the council response. I'm asking to find out what council can co-contribute to anticipate that a grant is going to say you need to co-contribute. There is nowhere in these notice of motions that are saying we are doing this now, we are doing this today. There is nothing in there. It is simply stating we already have letters for Rangarai Road because we've written, I think, twice or maybe 3 times. So it's almost a copy and paste letter that will be formatted. It's doing that extra step, making sure, so for Mount Caputa, that the relevant parties are other organisations that may fund it, environmental groups that may be able to fund it, National Parks and Wildlife, the Commonwealth. Do they want it back? If they want it back, great, because we are one of the only few councils to have a council road that we have to maintain in a national park. So again, to reiterate, I'm not asking for a design, I'm asking to seek grants, and it's great that in this feedback, it's got the likes of, it would take $200,000 to design a road for Mount Caputa. So again, that's the first light bulb that goes off. Great, we've got a price. We need to find a grant of $200,000 so we can design this project. I'm bringing this up now because by the time we talk about next financial year and getting these projects in that budget, it's too late. We need to look for grants and have this on our radar, our ears open, our eyes open, to go, a grant comes up around that March, April, May, when the government's saying we have leftover cash, we're going to dish it out. We go, oh, we need 200 for Mount Caputa road design. We need 150 for Rangarai road design. So I don't feel that this notice of motion is putting additional stress or taking away from our deliverables, which we have agreed on as a council, that they're priorities. I just want to highlight these 2 roads should be, perhaps, investigation, need to be on our radar for next year to design them, which then leads you down that trail. Exactly what I said before with Harperway Road. It's a 3-year process before they even get to think about sealing it. Hence why we need to think about these roads now. I would just like to also add a really good point with the traffic counters. Council cannot put traffic counters on a dirt road. How do we traffic count? Can someone tell me that? We're trying to seal these roads. Exactly. So on Rangarai Road, when you have several off streets and major intersection on the gravel, you don't encapsulate the full traffic. So this is one of the issues, and that was a previous motion, but these are some of the issues we're saying. So I do commend the Acting Director, Mr. Harris, for confirming that the internal roads are council assets, not national parks as many people think. I'm not saying to design it and put extra pressure on our staff. I commend them. I think they're doing a wonderful job, and to even deliver 90% of what we've asked them to do is going to be just an outstanding achievement. I'm saying we need to think about these two roads now so we are ready in that 3 to 5 years. I would be amazed if we could design it, find a grant and seal it in the next financial budget. I'm being realistic. So if we look at it, we know now we need $200,000 to design it. Okay, the next step is point 2. What money can we co-contribute if a grant comes up that we need to co-contribute?
Can I just, and this also affects the previous motion, and there is provision in our meeting procedure to recommit resolutions to correct an error. I'm just wondering whether we need to be very explicit, particularly the last motion, that does not give any consent to the $150,000 to draft up the drawing and the plans, etc. And also with this motion, be very explicit, maybe put a part 3 in there that just very explicitly excludes that, because, you know.
There is no word in there that says design in that. I want to write to local government,
Yep.
relevant ministers, so highlighting that is the main concern.
Yep.
2, I want to know how much money council can contribute.
I'm just wondering whether we put a separate item in there that would exclude that potentially.
Well, again,
General Manager.
I don't want to seem flippant, because I'm certainly not. I'm taking the conversation sort of quite seriously. But council can co-contribute whatever it desires to co-contribute at the end of the day. I don't know if there's an investigation. You may be able to correct me, Finance Director. We may be able to come up with a magical formula that suggests how much we could co-contribute to these road projects, but for me that is a question for you. How much do you want to co-contribute? And you could limit yourselves to percentages or to dollar figures. However, I certainly wouldn't advocate for you to even do that or consider doing that until we've had a conversation about state government funding the whole project, because that's called showing your hand. My feeling, particularly with running a $5.7 million loss, is we would co-contribute as little as possible to any of these roads, because we plainly don't have the money to be able to contribute to those projects, which is why we have so many grant-funded projects on the books at the moment. So I don't know if you, with your indulgence, Mr Mayor, I wonder if the Finance Director has any other comments.
Thank you, GM, through you to the Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. Reiterating your comments, Mr GM, in relation to co-contributions, generally grants are co-contribution dependent. It might be 40-60, it might be 70-30, might even be 20-80. But for the 23-24 year, I would reiterate the GM's comments where we are a $5.7 million budgeted deficit. So anything would need to be considered for the 24-25 year, I would recommend. But going forward, that would be part of the budget deliberations. Potentially, it could be that we foreshadow the investigative dollar values that are mentioned in the management comments for 24-25, and then from there we can have shovel-ready projects. So just looking forward.
So, Mr Mayor, what were you alluding to? You wanting us to resolve to go back and reconsider these as a...
I was just thinking there
seemed
there seemed to have been a little bit of confusion amongst some councillors as to whether that would commit us to the $150,000 or the $200,000. And if there's any confusion amongst councillors of around any motion, then it is, you know, it is incumbent upon me to just make sure that everyone's clear. Yeah. Councillor, are you happy with the motion as it stands, or do you wish to make an additional change, or are you happy with all that?
Through the chair, possibly I could help. From a GM perspective, I would love the minutes to record the fact that we've had this debate in particular, and that neither this nor the previous resolution commits council to any expenditure. That it's purely an advocacy exercise for preparation for future budgetary provision based on potential for grant funding. If we could record that in the minutes, and I know it's now on the recording because I've just said it live, but if we could make it part of the formal minutes, that would allay a lot of my fears for any future council that were to come in and possibly think that these resolutions related to actually expending monies when it was purely an advocacy exercise.
So the clauses 17.5 through to 17.1720. I'm going to go back to recommit the previous motion, and we're just going to add.
I don't think it's just the minutes. Yeah.
Well, we're just going to put that in the.
Mr Mayor, if you wish right now, once you put that motion, we can then, as a matter of urgency, move a motion that'll be noted that way. That's one way to do it without having to recommit it. Because your recommittal will go back to the 15.2, no doubt. And perhaps what you're doing in there is adding a note, it'd be noted by the General Manager, conversation that was had. So then you've got to deal with that twice. And we can do it if you accept a motion of urgency or move a mayoral minute yourself.
Correct.
Because it's important to see two councillors over here.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. Yep. I just seek the leave of council for a moment. We're just going to discuss as to what the best path forward.
Yeah, the old resolution's fine. This one's fine. It's just the debate focused on the spending money. But the resolutions don't commence to anything, so we can and we've got all clear to go back to it for anything. So what we're doing, we're purely advocating.
Councillors, it's quite clear that the motion is as written is of a nature of pure advocacy. So there's no intention of any expenditure as a result of that motion. There's no delivery as part of that motion. Otherwise, I wouldn't have agreed to it. So I'll put that motion. Do we have any sort of further discussion for and against? You've had your final closing. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Okay. We're moving to confidential, but I just need to go through the items.
So Alice is telling me we need to move an item under urgency.
In confidential? Or just before we're doing that? Okay. Councillors, we might continue. just before we move into confidential, it is a requirement that I give you a sense of, or give notice of an item of a matter of urgency, which is the electric vehicle charging stations, and there's a paper that councillors will be privy to. So I'm just giving public notice that that's the case. We've got to do that. So I'm letting you know that we'll formally do that. Now, before we move into confidential, the reason for moving into confidential is so, councillors, can I have a mover of this item that this is a matter of some urgency in confidential? Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to for or against? No. All those in favour? All those against? That's moved. Thank you. Now we move into confidential. Can I have a mover on that? Councillor Clements. Seconder? Councillor Richardson, thank you.
Mr Mayor, you need to tell, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but you've got members of the community here. The items have changed what's going into,
Yep.
And you need to just tell the community what's happening, because they can say, we disagree.
No worries.
So through the chair, we have a late paper to be presented in confidence. The issue for why it's late is because by mistake of this paper was actually slotted into February's council meeting rather than today's council meeting, and it was only very late in the piece that we realised this paper wasn't on this agenda. So that is the reason for it not being here. It was a genuine mistake, an unfortunate mistake, but it's an issue that needs to be considered before Christmas for commercial reasons. That's why the matter of urgency was indicated to the public that there is this paper that we do need to discuss, but it will be in confidence that the paper is discussed. And we apologise unreservedly to our elected members for doing what we always try to avoid, which is to giving them a paper at the very last minute to digest.
There are other matters, and those other matters are considered confidential under section 10A(2) right through to A through to D of the Local Government Act. And the council is satisfied that the discussion of this matter in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to the public interest as it deals with personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors, commercial information of confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it, and information would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council. So we need to move into, do I have a mover that we move into confidential? Councillor Dickinson? Councillor Richardson? No, that was another matter. That was an urgent item. This is actually that we move into confidential.
No, we didn't go ahead with it because we still had a member of the public, and I was asked to explain why we've got a late paper on that.
No, but that mover and seconder was for the previous item, which was the matter of urgency. So what we're doing now is we're moving into, we're debating the fact of whether or not we move into confidential. Quite simple. So we had a mover and a seconder on that? Yep. Is there any debate on that, for and against? I move that the motion be put. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. I can move things. Yeah, I have. By local government New South Wales, actually. Getting there. So we're out of where, if any members of the public want to join us? Out of confidential, correct? So we now are required, the General Manager is required to read out the results of the confidential. Mr. General Manager.
Has anyone got any resolutions for me? Is that one down there? Is it that one? Okay, so the following resolutions were passed whilst council was in committee. One, that council receives the applications for Community Financial Assistance Grant, CFAG, Round 2, 2023-24, and a total of $42,460.51 in funds be allocated from the 63151 Donations Community Assistance Scheme to the following applicants as detailed in the report and merit checklist. A, applicant 1, 5,000. Applicant 2, 5,000 and internal transfer of $1,500. Applicant 3, $500. Applicant 4, $4,000. Applicant 5, $5,000. Applicant 6, $5,000. Applicant 7, $4,400 and internal transfer of $990. Applicant 8, $2,718.28. Applicant 9, application does not meet criteria. Applicant 10, $8,352.23. That round 3, 23-24 of the CFAG be advertised as having $30,000 available for distribution for eligible entities and proposals. And the second resolution passed in confidence was that Council enter into a licence agreement with Tesla Motors Australia Pty Limited Tesla for part lot 11 DP 1060622 Crown Reserve 1005 known as 117 Tiberina Street, Narrabri, as indicatively identified on the attachment 1. That the license, do I read out the commercial terms? No. That would conclude the resolutions agreed in confidence.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Before we close the council meeting, can I just wish everyone a very, very safe and happy Christmas, all councillors, and we wish Godspeed to, of course, to all the firefighters and emergency services workers out there at the moment. So have a really relaxing break. We meet for a councillor briefing in the middle of February, but stay safe, everyone, and enjoy your break. Thank you. I now declare the meeting closed at